All right, big news for the Seminoles today. We've got the battles and quarter zip on. I know you can't see it because I'm kind of close to the screen, but a big pickup for the Noles, kind of out of nowhere, unexpected, maybe a little bit of a shock, but a huge pickup for the Noles. It probably means more than you realize, or at least explains some things more than you may realize. We'll talk about all that in just a minute, but let's jump right into it. Malik Clark, a four-star wide receiver out of South Carolina, picks the Noles. He's 6'2", 180 pounds. He's out of, again, Rock Hill, South Carolina. Four-star on every website. And really ranked pretty closely everywhere. You know, he's not super high anywhere, super low anywhere. Some pretty good agreement on where he is, what kind of player he is. He's number 6 in the state of South Carolina on 3, the number 6 player there, the number 3 player in the state of South Carolina on 247. The 247 composite has him number 213 nationally. On 3 has him at number 209, so he's just right there at a fringe top 200 type player. Honestly, if he moves up like one position in total wide receivers, he'll probably be up in the top 200 on both of them. A really good player, somebody that Florida State's really excited to have, multi-sport athlete, which we always talk about how big of a deal that is, and an absolute burner. So much speed that it's not funny. Runs under a 4.4. He's clocked at a 4.39 in the 40, 4.31 in the short shuttle. Does a great job of creating separation with not only his route running. I mean, you know, if you'll watch his film a little bit, he's not like the most technically sound when it comes to his just his feet. I think he can certainly be coached up and trained there. And, you know, you remember he's only gone through his junior year. But he does a good job of creating separation with just his pure athleticism. And then also he's very quick. You know, you're not going to be 4.39 and not be quick as well as just, you know, kind of good straight line speed. He does a really good job of kind of just moving and getting guys to just stay off balance. You know, he does a good job right at the line of scrimmage. You know, he's not the strongest, he's not the most physical there, but he does have really good size. He is really physical. You know, we talked about a little over 6'2", 6'2.5" on 3 has him listed at, and that's pretty impressive. Like, he's a burner, he's a speedster, and he does a good job of getting open and then making catches. Not a ton of contested stuff. Like, he's not going up over people. Maybe if he adds some size, adds some weight, you know, could eventually kind of jump into that as well, because he does have a nice frame. But at this point, like, he's your deep threat. Like, I think he's what you kind of thought you were getting with Destin Hill. Obviously, that's kind of remains to be seen. He's maybe what you had in Pokey Wilson, a little bit more polished there. Really good hands. Caught a ton of passes his junior year, 46 of them for I think right at 800 yards, 9 touchdowns. And he joins a pretty loaded class. You really like kind of what you have in this kid. I think you like what you have in your class overall. Not day one ready, I wouldn't say. I mean, I don't think he comes in and, you know, he's not like an Elijah Moore who came in who you think might be kind of day one ready. CJ Wiley could be a guy that produces really, really early. I think that he would probably be like hey, as a sophomore, he can kind of make a bigger splash, but, you know, we'll see. You know, could absolutely go off this senior year, and I'd love for this clip to be reshared and wrong, you know, at that point. Florida State really likes what they have at the wide receiver position right now in this class. I think it also points to something that's maybe a little bit bigger picture that we'll talk about in just a moment. Do me a quick favor, if you're enjoying this, if you like the fact that we picked this up, get on the board of subscribing. Just hit that button down below. You don't have to like or share or comment on the video. You can do any of those things, but if you'll help us get to 17,000 subscribers, we're just a handful away from that. The class right now at wide receiver is really, really solid. They love Dalen McCutcheon. Obviously, you felt like you led there, but you kind of surprised for that one. You kind of surprised with CJ. You didn't kind of surprise. You certainly surprised with CJ Wiley, and then picking up Malik Clark right here is a big deal. One that most Florida State fans didn't think you had a real shot at. You obviously missed on VB3, which, you know, not a real shocker there. That always kind of felt like UF. What you did miss on Josh Moore recently, who also ended up at UF, and I think a lot of FSU fans thought, well, maybe if Florida has a bad year, we could pick up on Josh Moore, kind of on the circle back, right? Like get him the next time through. Now, I don't know. I don't know that you wouldn't take him if a change happened there with Napier, but maybe Moore would look at Miami a little bit more and go that direction if something happened with Napier, which we kind of expect. And I'm not saying Florida State's out of it by any means there, but you might be done at wide receiver now. You might not need to go anywhere else unless you just go absolutely big game hunting with a Dallas Wilson or something like that later, which I don't necessarily know what the prospects are for that. What I do think this signifies is something a little bit bigger, and we always talk about the Battle's End, and we always try and give them love on commitments like this. But from a staff perspective, Florida State has done a really good job of going out and winning battles that they needed to win this cycle. And there have been a few things that Florida State fans will have gripes about. You know, we all remember linebacker recruiting this year, and really in the last couple of years hasn't been great. But Florida State's been willing to go out and win big battles that they need to win, whether it's Wiley, whether it's McCutcheon, now with Malik Clark, and then certainly other positions as well. And I think it kind of shows that Florida State is going to win the battles when it can, right? They're going to lose things at times, but when it comes to NIL, like, they're going to invest where they see the most value. And we've talked about this on other shows, and this is not to excuse missing on other recruits at other times, but they're going to win battles where they want to invest. And to me, this probably points out where they feel a little bit more value investing. I think wide receiver is a position you absolutely have to do that at. I think that it's a position you at times are willing to break the bank a little bit or overpay. And I'm not necessarily even saying they did that with Malik Clark, but I do think that there are certain positions where Florida State's willing to kind of up the bets a little bit, right? And other positions where they're not. And maybe this kind of signifies that. This came out of absolutely nowhere. Recruiting definitely seems this year like it's a little more quiet. You're getting a lot more of these surprises. Really all three of them at wide receiver. Even though you led from McCutcheon, it felt like that was trending away to USC. And I like that. I like that we don't, recruiting has, with NIL, I think recruiting has gotten a little bit boring. I'm still really excited every time we pick up a commit, but you almost always know where a kid's going. There's so many insiders. There's so many sources. There, whether that's one of the websites, whether that's us in our Patreon or Discord, whatever the situation is, like, we almost always know where a kid's going. And so when you get some of these surprises, which we've had this year, most for us, some against us, but really all three wide receivers, you think about Wallace, you think about others, like, this is a little bit more exciting than it has been in recruiting. And I think that's a lot of fun, and it's something different. I mean, you even look the other day with a big-time commit, 5-star picking LSU when everybody thought it was Oregon or Miami. I think that makes it a little bit more fun. And so shout out, again, the Battle's End. If you're not signed up there, we certainly would encourage it. But big shout out to, what is going on in recruiting in general, and just, things being a little bit more exciting. You won out over the hometown Gamecocks, UNC, and NC State, which I think is a big deal. I think pulling a kid out of that area, I mean, you're Florida State, you got a bigger brand than all those schools. You should grab them, but I think still winning out over the hometown teams is still really, really impressive. I think that shows a sign that Florida State can go out and move in silence. That was the big catchphrase or big key that we said last year was, we move in silence. This year, they're actually doing that. It's pretty impressive to see. And they're picking up commitments that nobody really expected. So big shout out to, Coach Dugans, Mike Norvell, the Battle's End, everybody kind of involved there. Offensive team recruiting right now is really, really sharp. I mean, you're up to number 7 right now in the On3 industry rankings. You're up to number, I believe it's 17 on 247. We've talked about that a little bit. 247 takes the entire weight of the whole class. On3 is a little bit more of an average, so that if you just have 30 commits, you're not getting extra points for that. I like the way On3 does that a little bit better than 247's. It's kind of more of a snapshot of where you are in that moment. 247's is more of a projection of where you'll get later because your class is a little bit more full. Both valuable tools. Honestly, I think Florida State finishes somewhere in the middle of that, hopefully on the higher end. I don't think they finish as good as 7. I don't think they finish as low as 17. And so I think they're going to be top 15, top 10 if they can land a few more big-time commits. 12 out of 13 are blue chips. That's quantity and quality, right? Like you're filling out the class and you've got a lot of commits, but it is much more quality when you're looking at the 2 of them, right? 12 of 13 blue chips. We really like the 1 3-star guy that we have and think that we have a good chance of getting that up to 100% at some point. They will take more 3-stars in this class. I mean, there's no doubt about it, but what they've been doing and the way they've been selective has been really, really impressive as well. So big shout out to Florida State. Obviously, go join the Battle's End if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button here if you haven't already. But big day for the Noles. They get a little bit better, up to a number 7 class overall and on 3. And man, the climb is pretty real. Kids want to be part of it, and they're showing a pretty good propensity to go out there and get the job done on the trail right now. And so, first surprise with the dead period over, now is a 4-star wide receiver, and no FSU fans are going to complain about that. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. I chatted with Pat Payton over at ACC Kickoff. he had a pretty good answer on a question I asked him about going off in a big game this year. Go check that out by clicking on the screen right now if you haven't already seen it.